Guys, welcome back. And we do this broadcast to promote not just the latest things I've accomplished as an artist, but to chat with you guys, to read the input, the letters that come in from you guys, the comments, and go over those with you, because a lot of them are very astute and they deserve answering. So let's start right here. The Max writes in 2 X's, and he's got a really good question here that people have been wondering about and commenting on for 2 decades now. He goes, Steve, I hope this isn't an insensitive subject to bring up, but has Steve ever discussed the whole run-in with Alex Toth on YouTube? I came across the whole saga the other day and was shocked at how brutal Toth was. Later finding out that's generally how he was. I'll second that emotion. I thought the submission by Steve was terrific, and Steve's rebuttal was so reserved and mature in comparison. Thank you. I just thought it was interesting and would love to hear a rundown of the saga from Steve. I contacted Alex when I got done doing the second half of the Johnny Quest comic for Kamiko, the first issue. Doug Wiley did the first half, and they asked me to do the second half. So I ended up doing a lot of research for this thing, which Alex thinks I did nothing. The problem was Alex was misinterpreting and didn't quite know what he was talking about. I remember I had put a laser rangefinder, which is a surveyor's tool, to scope out the land and see it in terms of meters and all that kind of stuff. And Alex thought it was a camera. He made a clear point of telling me that, Steve, I know cameras and this is not a camera right here. Well, you're right, Alex, it wasn't a camera, it was a rangefinder. This is when I called him up after he sent me the critique. So that's all in writing. And then I called him up to explain a few things to him about what he was incorrect about. Well, you can imagine how that went. I've said it before, but the best description of dealing with Alex Toth, who is literally one of a kind, is when you're in his presence, it's like holding a live grenade in your hand, because it's going to go off. You just don't know when. And he really was like that. So I sent a follow-up letter, I think. Anyway, some turkey posted something that was supposed to be a very private thing online. And people got a hold of it. I don't even have the damn thing here, but apparently it's made the rounds, and people are very curious about that. Alex's bitterness about everything colors everything he says and everything he does. Honestly, I had to refute basically everything he said that he pointed out. One thing that I remember him saying is, an Uzi is a spray weapon. You don't got to hold it up like this. But I did that for dramatic reasons. It looks a lot better to hold it up like this than down here like this. So there's my reasoning for that. But it was intentionally researched, and that's everything Alex said I didn't do. So he was wrong about that. So there's a story, Max. I hope that entertains you right there and gives you an idea of the scoop that went on with me and Mr. Toth. And somebody wants to know if I can make a hair turnaround video. Can you please make a video on hair turnaround, please, please? Let me think about it. This guy writes in and asks for a very basic description of the books that I like. Well, that's not hard. Animation-wise, this is the one I would recommend the best. It's a huge book. It's 300 pages long. It's very simply told, and that's the secret of this guy's work right here. There's nothing to be confused about. He takes all the mystery and doesn't use any industry jargon. He just very straight out, using almost stick figure examples of how everything you could ever want to know about how to make people move is in here. So can't recommend that enough. Richard Williams isn't around anymore, but I think that's what people do at the end of their career. They want to put out that outlives them many thousands of years beyond their mortal lifetime. The second things I would recommend is the Famous Artist course that came out of Westport, Connecticut, that was run by Albert Dorn. This is one of several books that came out in the 1950s that are just incredibly valuable. And because it was written by an artist and your work was critiqued by other artists, and the faculty was the best artists living at the moment and at that time during the 1940s and 50s, these guys were recruited to be the faculty members of the Famous Artist course. And it was a home study course. And the idea that Dorn thought about was, you don't have to come to New York to learn how to draw. We'll send you everything that we know in a book form, and you practice in it, send in your lessons, and we'll tell you how you did. Incredibly valuable. These books are floated around at half-price book sales. If you see them, grab them. They're invaluable. Rockwell, I've gone on about Rockwell many times. Rockwell is simply unequaled in any sense of the word. He could, there's nothing he couldn't do. There's nothing he couldn't paint. There's no higher plateau that he could have ascended to. He reached the absolute peak. By virtue of that, I think deservedly, he is the only guy that the average person knows off the street as far as illustrators go, Norman Rockwell. My personal preference is in books like this. This is a book that I had something to do with Dan Zimmer, who published this book by Harry Anderson. Harry Anderson is someone that comes from the Loomis Sunbloom School. And Loomis and Sunbloom came from Sargent in the Zorn School. They went from people that were born in the 1850s to guys that were born in the beginning of the 1900s. And because I knew Harry and got to know him very well in my 4 visits that I drove to meet him. I lived in Wisconsin, he lived in West Bridgeport, Connecticut. So a lot of these things that I had actually taken pictures of, Dan was nice enough to include a little thing that I had talked about here in the form of this little article right here. And I described the time that I had with Harry and what took place and what I asked him and what he showed me. And that's my little ode to Harry, trying to be painted in the style that he himself might have done. So I'm really glad that was in here. But yeah, I got to know this guy. He's another guy who's reached the absolute pinnacle of his craft. I'm told this book didn't sell very well, which is kind of under the go figure department. But the way this guy could manipulate paint, and that's half the reason I went over to see him, is to have him show me how he made certain paint strokes look very soft. I eventually learned it, and I'm still practicing it after all this time. I met Harry in 1987, or 86, I think. That was my first visit to him, and I was able to see him 4 more times before he passed away. Harry was a very religious guy, so whatever answer he spent his life looking up the scriptures about, I think he found the final answer at last. And of course, the book that I call the Bible of Illustration, the Andrew Loomis books. These are books that are pretty remarkable in the way that Loomis had to still work during the day doing paying jobs while he did books like this. He did probably a total of five books that were just sensational. Everything that I have learned and everything that I took to naturally, just by way of, I love the way he drew people, came from Andrew Loomis. And the girls I draw are Loomis girls. The guys I draw are handsome Loomis guys. That's what I call them. And this book right here covered every basic thing there was. But first you had to think about what all illustration came down to. And what it came down to was line, as you see here, tone, which is refers to black and white, and eventually he gets into the color section. And most everybody knows about this this book by now. I know what I was going to say. I was going to say that when I came on the scene in '81, very few people knew about Andrew Loomis, or if they did, they never talked about him. And when I got in there, the first thing I wanted to do was sound off and all the influences that I had throughout my life that have really made me what I am. And that was on top of studying books like this endlessly. I still haven't finished the entire book, I'm sure. On top of all the schooling that I've had, all the workshops, and living in different places just to find a teacher that could really give me a leg up. So I was very ambitious about things like this. And if I thought there is a person somewhere in the U.S., maybe even the world, that could teach me things that I needed help with, I would go there and spend enough time to fill in the holes that were kind of in my head that I didn't quite know how to pull off. Continuing with your letters here. So Franz is a really cool guy. He's really been helping us out immensely with the Rude Dude brand here. And he just thought it was really cool that I critiqued his work, which was last week. And Franz is quite accomplished, as you guys saw from last week. His work is exceptional, and the fun thing about being where you are, if you're already that good, is there's always some place to go. That's part of what makes an artist life so exciting. It's a daily thing where I literally get up and I think, what can I work on today? And it's either, I start off with either sketchbook stuff or whatever else is on my mind, color studies, and then I finally get to work on my pages. The only excursions I have from that are going over to my animation desk and doing some more layouts for the proposed Nexus animated show. This guy writes in and says, this is a good question right here. What type of eraser do you use after you've inked the page, Steve? I've tried out some inking with speedball nib pens, and I ended up rubbing a lot of the ink away, even though it was completely dry. Welcome to the world of art supplies and what nobody ever talks about, and what is shared in common with everybody who's ever worked with an eraser. He mentions that Kirby did, you know, the pink erasers. You've all seen the ones. They look like this when they're actually being used. And yes, I would absolutely recommend those for erasing your pages. I think I've used a kneaded eraser. It's a different kind of a creature than this one right here. I think this is the one to go with right here. This guy writes in about pen nibs, which is always something of interest to me, and hopefully for you too, while we're thinking about doing hair turnarounds. Vintage nibs too, while they may be fresh, today they have 80 plus years of air humidity, which makes the metal dull and matte. That's something I never knew, but you know, the intellect of our readers here is unsurpassed. They also had bad batches back then as well. Still, I have a set of Gillette 170s my dad gave me, and they are amazing. And I've been using the same nib for months. Boy, that's quite a world's record right there, since I don't seem to have them last more than 2 weeks tops. And he goes, I have other vintage 170s that aren't as good. And some are too flexible, others too stiff, others too scratchy. So go figure. The same supposed pen number, which is a 170 Gillette, and the quality of them is kind of all over the place. He goes on to mention that he's been using a combination of the 170s, the Browsy 513, and the Gillette 170. All these things are great. You know, when I lived in LA, there was a great art store called Carter's Sexton, and they had the famous Loomis paintings all over the walls of the art supply store. And I'd get up on a ladder and just go nuts looking at these things. And later on, they were published in some articles by Loomis, which are exceptional. So we finally had a chance to see those things in print. The things we always had to get up on a ladder to see firsthand. Anyway, the point of this is that store was so old-fashioned, they had individual sets of every pen nib you could ever imagine. Every name brand, every type of 102, 104, 108, Hunts, things like that. They were all there in little individual pockets where you would pick out the ones that you wanted and go pay for them. And this was fun for me because I could literally stand there and test the pen nib out on paper without ink, but just feeling how it went across the paper. There is no, I would say, no ultimate pen nib point. A 170 is wonderful. That's one of the ones that Alex Toth worked with, but they're all worth trying. When someone says, I love the 170s, well, there's several other brand names that are almost identical to that. So it's just a matter of digging in and trying and learning to buy some new ones and try them out. Because that's what I've always done. These guys are cool. This guy goes, definitely something I've always noticed about your work, Mr. Dude. No generic cookie cutter faces. And you're always able to keep the differences in continuity. I try, and thanks for saying that. This guy has a question dear to my heart. When are we going to see the new episodes of Nexus? Now, he's obviously referring to the animated cartoon. There's going to come a time when I have to implement my plan of finding my own crew, because there's no way I'm going to work with any of the large studios, the conglomerations, because I know better than to do that. It's just going to be one hellacious ride into senility and losing your mind in a padded cell. I don't want to do that to myself, so I literally have to form my own organization, much like George Lucas did when he formed his own company after he got fed up with how the people in charge of the studios treated him. People we commonly refer to as the suits. And that's kind of the angle that I want to go. What's required to make that happen is we're actually looking at a couple $1 million. $2 million is what eventually is going to be our goal. And that's going to buy me a paycheck, and it's going to buy the people that I recruit. I have to pay them too. So it's all about having enough income to pay them, and that's why we're looking at a price tag of $2 million, which is actually probably going to be every cent used up in the making of these various shows here. But that's the idea, and the idea in my mind is as foolproof as anything I could ever do, because I'm not beholden to anybody's overwatch. It's strictly, I'm the boss, here's what we're going to do, let's do it. So that's the way I think this thing is going to get done, and I don't think it can get done any other way. This guy writes in, and is it me or did Leyendecker have a sort of angular geometric quality to his forms and a lot of straight lines? Yeah, in the school that I went to in LA, they talked about the three kinds of lines. One is a straight line, the other is a C curve, and the other is an S curve. And they go from simple, a little bit less simple, and the S is the most complex. Obviously, these aren't complex things; these are really simple things. But in designing the forms that you're using, it was one of those three lines that you could find anything in nature to conform to those three shapes. And that's what Leyendecker did. He was unsurpassed with what he did. His technical expertise, his taste in the way and what he did, in every other sense that what he had as an artist is simply the highest point you could ever achieve in life, much like Rockwell. But there's a lot of guys, individually, we all try to raise to that pinnacle point that we're all capable of, and that's what we spend our life doing. So, and now in my late 60s, I'm still going through that because the journey doesn't have an end to it at all. There's no finite end to it. It just keeps going. It was like that when I was 12. It was like that when I was 18. And it's like that now at 68. This guy is commenting on Flowhard. Flowhard? Oh, there she is. Should we get the camera on Flowhard? Flowhard's right over here. Her real name is Chloe, but I call her Hound Dog or Flowhard. There's Hound Dog. So glad you asked about the blowhard here. This guy writes in, this is about Stru, my friend Drew Strusen. Mr. Root, thanks so much for doing this tribute to an artist I barely knew about. Your work on Nexus, along with Mike Barron's, was life-changing for me and made my day back when it was first coming out in the 80s, which is apparently what a lot of people thought it ended at. So glad you're doing that new edition. May you continue to go from strength to strength. This guy writes in, a guy named Dustin Randall. This is very common for people that were born at a different time than I was, much later on. I only learned about Drew after he passed that his posters were handmade art. This just seems like a funny question to people from my generation because we did nothing but real art with real brushes on paper, on board, on canvas, with every medium under the sun, with brushes. And he goes on to say, I thought it was photography with Photoshop effects to make it look like a painting drawing. Dustin's obviously a newcomer to the world of art and is obviously very well ingrained in the idea that most art today, if not everything, is produced by machines. This is kind of funny. The guy wrote something pretty funny in here. It means more than just what it appears to be. I obviously can pick up on that. It warms the cockles of my cold, dead heart, seeing Steve render this wonderful painting of Mary Jane. The words that affected me the most are cold, dead heart. He's obviously someone of a respectable age. He's been around. He's lived a life long enough to know that there are many cold, dead hearts out there that could have been avoided if people had been nicer to each other. Mr. Rude, this is from Paul Lewis. Mr. Rude, thank you for providing these wonderful lessons. There will be a young artist that will say in a future interview, I saw these videos by Steve Rude that got me thinking about effective storytelling. These videos help me be a better receiver of what skilled artists are communicating. All the best. That is, in fact, a high priority in these podcasts here, these live podcasts, to inform, dispense with various things that I think are wives' tales that people believe in that are simply not true. When you burden somebody that's trying to go into a really fun occupation like being an artist, you don't want to flood them and blow their mind with too many rules to begin with, and too many things that you should or shouldn't do. All this does is just make the world a little colder place. I think my version of teaching is all about nurturing. I will tell you what I think. I will prove it to you by doing samples of what the question may be about, and do anything else I can to see if I can make your journey a little less painful and get you there a little faster. The final letter that came in seems to have provoked a little bit of controversy here. It's by a guy named Keith Lake. With all respect to Kirby, what you call the bleach out impact scene is just a way to keep from having to draw the whole figure. I took that as a challenge, and what I ended up doing was, we're artists and we prove it by pictures, not words. So if you look at the version here that was done by Kirby, and the one that was done by me, which is something that any old artist could have done, you tell me which has more impact. It has zero to do with how much work is drawn in all the detail. You don't. This is a case where truly less is more. And the only guy to ever pursue this way of graphic representation of power is Jack. Everyone has the examples of his work out there, and yet so few take advantage of it. So thanks for sending that in. I hope you weren't too bombarded by different comments. A lot of people were asking me about, I made a comment about where I stand in the pantheon of artists, the big picture kind of thing. And I made some comment about, you know, I'm actually very low on the totem pole. There are people that have a mastery that's beyond anything that I could ever conceive of. And I found an example just by dumb luck the other day, and I wanted to show it to you. It's this painting right here. If you look very carefully at this, these are works of people in the so-called fine art field that are so versed in their craft, it simply couldn't get any better than what they do. And there are tons of people like this, tons of artists, unsung, literally hundreds that I never knew about. But there's a channel on YouTube that I subscribe to that talks about all these artists that are just unbelievable at what they do. So that's what education is all about. That's what YouTube is all about for me. After work, I go and look at art videos on YouTube and hopefully learn something from them. And if you look at that painting, it's just insatiably perfect. It was done by a guy named Frederick March, and it was done in the year 1900. And the size of it is 24 by 34, which is, you know, large, but not too large for a full figure painting like this. And you can see his studio on the bottom there, the way he worked. This is the mindset of everyone before the year 2000, which is this is how you worked. And it's the way that I'll continue to work until the end of my life, because I happen to like it. And I also want to keep promoting what I think is something that is much more rewarding internally than doing work with some kind of a pencil. They call it in a Cintiq, I guess they call them that too. I want to thank everyone who's tuned in for today. I think I covered everything that I needed to. It's been great to see your letters coming in. Keep those coming. They provide all the kind of right feedback that I want to give you guys based on anything that I may know that could help your journey out a little better and a little less painful. So I'm Steve Root. I'll see you next time for some more cool stuff. Take care.